lately I've been browsing, treading water that they drowning. My head on a swivel, yeah. It's only really my surroundings.
Hello and welcome to episode 116 of the Smash Accept podcast. I'm your host, Michael Royer. You can find me on Twitter at Dynasty_DadFF. It is the playoffs right now, and guys, I got a little icing here. Man, is that sweet. But I'll tell you what, man, that was good. I might get some more. But there is nothing more sweet than winning your fantasy playoffs. And this week was absolutely crazy, and John and I are going to break things down here and really talk to you guys about, if you don't have a trade deadline, how to make those moves, and just the sheer heartbreak that was, week 16. Guys, as always, it's a treat. Chop it up. He's like my brother from a different mother, John. It's playoff time, man. Like this past weekend, and you and I have been doing this long enough where we both reminded each other before week 16 started, hey, go enjoy your time with your family, because, man, like the nerves are on edge, right? Like you're watching that last game last night with the Chargers, and we all needed points from Keenan Allen or someone in that game, and it's just it's like a high when you win. It's such a letdown, and it's just crazy time, and that's what we play for.
Yeah, this was an incredible week, and congratulations to everyone that did make it on to the finals in their different leagues, and looking forward to breaking it down here. But, yeah, we had an incredible one in Smash 1. We'll have to break that one down in the semis there. This is just, like you said, it's so nerve-wracking, and you kind of have to remind yourself, like, what are you doing it for? And are you playing for the community and the entertainment, or is it about the finances and taking down some coin, or is it just about the respect with your bros, or what is it about? And just kind of remind yourself of why you're doing it. And just always try to have a little fun and wish your opponent well if they took you out, and figure out what you got to do better for next year, right? But yeah, I definitely. All that said, I did make it to a few ships, and I'm really hoping to take it down.
And now that we're in analysts and running a podcast and having fun with it, the biggest thing for me now, like I get totally into winning, but when I get messages, I there was a tweet out there from JRC at Viking Power 72. He goes, this guy helped me with my rebuild, also getting to a ship in another league. Thank you so much to the Dynasty Dad. Like those kind of tweets, when I see them, and it's not even like a DM, it's out there just like, hey, you helped get me to this spot. Like you took this team from that rebuild process. And, now that we've been doing this more than a year, it's like there's some of these teams that they trusted the rebuild last year, and now they're in a championship position now. And it's like, that is so rewarding to me. All the DMs we've gotten of like, yo, Dad, thanks for helping me get to the playoffs. Smash Accept podcast has really helped me, excel in how I do things. And the whole top three or bottom three, we don't want to be in that middle, that, that treadmill of mediocrity. Like we're really trying to separate that. And John, as well as I do, I was talking there, and it's like, this week is so frustrating. You get into these situations where, yeah, we all expected Nuke to put up 1.4, right? Or Devontae Adams to put up 3.8, or Diggs to put up. If you had Evans, Diggs, Hopkins, and Devontae Adams, you thought you had a smash. That's less than 15 points total. Ramondre Stevenson goes out there and puts up 2 points. Justin Fields, who's been phenomenal, goes out there and puts up a dud. Herbert puts up a dud. If you are still there, more power to you. Those teams that lost, I got to give kudos to the guys in the Smash Accept leagues. I got bounced from 4 of my 5 semifinals, and I was second in points in every single one of them. So it's like, brutal. You guys are out there. You guys are grinding. But, John, I think, like, the difficult thing this time of year is if you did lose, and I'm guilty of this. It's like, man, I want to pack it in, and let's find some rebuilds, or let's find some startups and things like that. You got to take it into perspective of, I always say, it's skill to get into the playoffs in Dynasty. It's luck to win it sometimes. I had a roster where if you go down the line, he was starting KJ Osborne and I was starting Devontae Adams, and he was starting Tyler Higbee and I'm starting Travis Kelce, right? Like you go hold the entire way down. I have a better player at every single spot. and he beat me. Just because of the luck of the draw of Tyler Higbee putting up 39 points. Like guys like that where you just got to give a tip of the hat and you just say, you know what? I put myself in position to win, and I got to be happy with that. And I think that's the hardest thing for me as a dynasty owner to be like, man, I put in the work on this roster, and this chump comes in with a roster full of, Tyler Higbees and Evan Ingrams, and he beat me.
Yeah, and that is really what we love and hate about fantasy football, isn't it? It's that unpredictability. You come in, you're favored to win. That to me is like the testament, right? Let's say you were the 1 seed, you're favored to win. At that point, it does kind of come down to the luck factor, and you've done everything you can. Just remind yourself of that things happen, right? You could have still a 90% chance to win going into that river card, but it might end up as a bad beat. Something happens, there's injuries, there's fluky stuff that happens in the NFL, and that's kind of what makes it great, because nobody in this business can really predict everything. You just have to do everything you can to increase your chances, increase that projection going in, and hope for the best coming back out.
Now, I know in the Smash Leagues, the way I run it is there is no trade deadline. In several of my other leagues, Zoltan's a fantastic commissioner. He has a strict trade deadline, as soon as Thursday rolls around in week 14, there's no more trades. How do you prefer it now that you've seen both sides? Because I know before the Smash Leagues, I think you were in pretty much cut and dry. There was trade deadlines. Talk to me about the difference between the two and your preference right now. Because, I see pros and cons to both. Everyone knows, if you listen to the podcast, I am so heavily invested in Jalen Hurts, it's not even funny. Right. So leagues where there was no trade deadline, I was able to go out there and get Gardner Minshew. I was able to go out there and get Geno Smith, which didn't help. But, I was able to make those moves where in the other ones, I was rolling out there with that, sometimes it's tough in a 14 team where I was rolling out Kenny Pickett, and I'm like, man, this hurts. Like, if there was no trade deadline here, I could make a move. So talk to me a little bit about your philosophy and how it's changed over the couple of years.
Yeah, it's really one of the most debated topics in fantasy football, no question about it. And I think if your objective of your league is to try and have a dynasty league that really resembles the NFL, and you're really trying to mimic how the NFL is set up, that might be one reason to consider having a trade deadline, just like the NFL, to mimic how those teams operate in the NFL. But for me, especially after being in a couple Smash leagues, I very much am pro no trade deadline at all. And it's because of exactly what you said, right? You lose Jonathan Taylor, you lose Jalen Hurts. And, now I wake up this morning after a big semifinal win in Smash 1 and find out Derrick Henry may sit out because of the game. We'll have to unpack that one too. That gives you still a chance to make a move. And of course, this whole pod is about trades. So trades up until the very last moment when the games start in the final.
Yeah, we look at Smash 5. I was on the phone with you.
And the ability to skill. Yeah.
Yeah, Smash 5, I was on the phone with you, and I was like, hey, should I start this guy? I was like, oh my gosh, he just traded for Justin Jefferson. And it, promotes so much more trading where the teams that are out of it can trade with the teams that are in, and I think you get a lot of opportunities where those teams in the bottom can really start to even themselves out a little bit if it's done properly, and I think that's the tricky part. There's the caveat of both. If you see that lopsided trade this time of year, that hurts one way or another. I personally don't like the trade deadline because I enjoy being able to make those extra moves. I enjoy being able to, use that capital. We talk about this a lot where I've insulated trades, and I made a trade. I ended up winning. It was the right principle of the trade, but we talked about it in season. I traded Kittle for Schultz and a first. I used that first and Devonta Smith this weekend to get Christian McCaffrey. And Christian McCaffrey right now I think is the number one running back for week 17, according to Fantasy Pros, and he's got that juicy matchup against the Raiders. It didn't help me this particular week, but we talk about having those insulated trades, having those guys, having those picks ready to go for this time of year. And I think in your leagues with no trade deadline, it becomes very difficult to make some moves. You know, you're going to have to pay a little bit of a premium. And, you know, in my one league, I've been 7 straight ships. I was trying to make it 8 that I've been in. I've won 3 in a row. I'm trying to 4-peat, right? And the guy goes, I was like, hey, I'll give you Lamar for Dak Prescott. I said to him, I'll give you Lamar for Dak Prescott. He goes, no, I need more. And I'm like, yo, I was like, Lamar's worth considerably more than Dak. He goes, and then I was like, fine, I'll give you Cole Kmet, and I'll give you Zach Ertz, and I'll give you 3 third-round picks. He goes, nope, not enough. And I'm like, man, like they hold you over the fire, right, when you're trying to repeat. He goes, throw in Rachaad White. And I'm like, man, I just couldn't do it, right? It just felt like so much capital. Had I made the move, I would have won by 1 point. You know, so, John, it's tricky right now. It's like, yeah, you're probably going to lose a trade. If you're a playoff team now and you're making that trade, you're probably going to lose a little bit of value. But in the long term, it's so worth it if you win it, right? I mean, you got to look at what's important to you. Is it that money? Because in a lot of leagues, you know, it's a 90-10 split sometimes. You got to look at it. Is it that trophy? Is it that honor of winning the league? What is it for you? Mm-hmm. And it's like, where do you draw that line, right? I talked to you about it and you're like, that guy's crazy. And I was like, I know. So then I trade for Geno tanks. I lose by 5. Dak would have been the additional, 15 points I clearly would have won. So like, I'm sitting here afterwards, I'm like, should I have made that move? And where do you draw that line? And I think that's the toughest thing to tell someone right now is like, hey man, like this guy wants like a first and a half over what we should have.
Yeah, you really have to be willing to take a loss on a trade in exchange for putting you over the top and winning that championship. Again, we talk about, can you get 80% of the value in return that is the piece that you need. And you really need to convince yourself, kind of do the math, look at your opponent and your roster and kind of size it up. And if you really think that you need 1, maybe 2 more pieces and making that trade, even though you're going to take a loss, because of course the other guy likely has all the leverage in this particular trade, you still, find a way to get it done. And sometimes that will be the difference. We've seen it time and time again. And it's a great message for our listeners. Like, yeah, I know it's dynasty, mortgage the future. That's not really what we're talking about here, but yeah, it might hurt you next season, but you're going to be sitting there as cash, right? And the eternal glory of taking it down, right? So that makes it all worth it.
It's tricky. I mean, in another league in Smash 6, a guy was like, hey, I said, I got Kenneth Walker, but I really want Eckler for the playoffs. He goes, I'm going to need a 23-second. And I'm just thinking to myself, man, I should have done it. I lost by 2. There's a 9-point difference in there. It would have happened. But then you lose that value, and it's just like, it's a very tough sledding there to try to grasp to yourself. I'm going to get 4 years older at running back. But if you think that's enough to get you through, I should. Mm-hmm. I'm sitting here with remorse, right? I would rather sit here and just be like, okay, I can try to trade Eckler for something now if I want to, than to be sitting where I'm at right now. And I mean, I've made 6 championships. I know you did as well. So it's like, I have a lot to look forward to this week, but I'm beating myself up about those ones where I'm like, I could have just done a little bit different. I could have went all in. And if you're going to go all in, you might as well add that little bit. I mean, what is that? It was a mid 23-second on top. Yes. Is Walker worth more than Eckler? Yes. Adding a 23-second, was that anything? Probably not. And I should have just went in and done it, and hindsight's 20/20 on those kind of things. But it's like, what we're trying to say is if you got those moves, guys, and we're not saying throw a 23 first, just throw it in there. But if we're talking a second, or we're trying to get, a guy like, you're trying to move a Brian Robinson, like even there's so many guys where it's like, all right, yeah, you can have them, because it's going to get that deal done. And who are some of those guys this week who you're trying to trade for? I mean, I know a lot of people right now, John, they're asking me, what do I do with Devontae Adams, Stephon Diggs, with DeAndre Hopkins and Mike Evans? Because those are the 4 guys. You're probably in the playoffs if you have one or more of those guys, and you made it through this week. How are you treating them for week 17? Because I know a lot of people, I'm getting questions like, should I play Nuke because of what's been going on with McSorley? Should I play Diggs because he's had 4 straight weeks of subpar play? I mean, should I play Adams? He had such a horrible week 16. what do I do with these particular guys?
Yeah, this is an important piece to really start evaluating and find the right targets. You're scanning the rosters of the people that have been eliminated and finding some assets that you could pick up, maybe particularly pretty cheap.
Well,
At running back,
the
there's a couple
point.
guys that I'd be looking at. Could you get James Conner possibly?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. You brought up a great point there, John. And I didn't mean to cut you off.
Go ahead.
But as soon as someone's eliminated, look at that roster, right? Like, that's exactly what I did. I'm like, yo, did that guy that had Kelsey lose? Because I'm going to try to go in there. Did Eckler, who's that aging veteran where that guy just lost? And especially with the idea of Devontae Adams, Stephon Diggs, Hopkins and Evans, they're probably sour as anything right now, where I think you can get these guys a little bit cheaper than what you will be in the offseason.
Yeah, exactly. And you look at guys that, maybe it was somebody that was definitely competing but got eliminated, right? Those are the rosters that have those types of players that you're looking for. And I was just throwing out James Conner as a good trade target. You could look at guys like maybe try to see if you could pick up Nick Chubb or Cam Akers. Ramondre Stevenson, I think, is going to have a great week. Those are some of the guys there at running back. A lot of times I'm trying to pick up running backs and put them in the flex because they're going to have good level of touches in the game. I mean, you could still go and try and maybe pick up somebody like DK or Diggs. You mentioned, maybe there's somebody that just lost because Diggs only got him like 4 points. Go after, see if you can pick him up, right? Maybe the owner just got burned. You kind of have to have those conversations here over the next 48 hours and see if you can get another deal, get another piece. If you're still sitting on picks, second, third, fourth round rookie picks, and you're going into the ship, I'd move those for any kind of pieces. Pick up somebody like Jerick McKinnon. If you could do that, that would be a nice target there. Or, if your QB got hurt, we've been talking about it on the pod a few times, picking up somebody like Jared Goff, Gardner Minshew. These guys could be QB1s and help you win that ship, right? So be active, have that all-in mentality, right? And if I just my one roster, and I'm going to tell this quick story if I can. The two big guys that helped me win in the semis against Jake Thorndyke, shout out to Jake. I really thought he had me. I come into this game projected to lose by like 40. I kid you not, 40. And everyone's like, oh, champs on the ropes. I've, of course, won it last year trying to defend the title. And I have Keenan Allen and Austin Eckler still left to go. He has Nick Foles and he has Gerald Everett. And we saw what happened to Nick Foles last night. But I actually made trades for both Eckler and for Keenan Allen, right? And at one point in time, it was so painful to do it. I think that getting Keenan Allen, I had to part with my 23 first in a package deal, which looks like it's going to be either, it's going to be the 113 or 1. Moves, completely epic comeback. Those are the kinds of games that I'll never forget, coming back and just almost written off, but winning that semifinal game against Jack will be one of my all-time favorite memories. And those are the reasons why I play, just for that fun entertainment, the rush that you get out of winning something like that.
Yeah, you get that last, I'm sitting there watching it and I was like, I put the tweet out there. I was like, I need 26 from Eckler and Pittman. I need 23 from Keenan and Everett, which, by the way, Keenan got 21 and Everett got the goose. So that killed me,
I know.
But you're sitting there like it's so many different scenarios. And when that guy gets that catch or gets that touchdown, which Keenan Allen, I still say, kept his feet in, and that would have been it. But, the guy gets that score, you erupt, right? And it's like a fantastic
just pumping, running around. Yeah.
Exactly.
Streak in the neighborhood. Yeah.
I think what John and I are trying to say is if you are in there, go all in, make those moves. The quarterback position, John, is one where I'm really struggling with, right? Because I lost Jalen Hurts everywhere. And it's like if someone has Mahomes or Allen or Fields or Burrow, they're the top four guys this week. They're not giving them up. You're not going to be able to make a move. Try, but it's not going to happen. Dak Prescott, maybe he gets Tennessee this week. I don't want to make a move for Herbert right now just because of the way he struggled. You know, there's so many guys. I think Goff is a great guy to go out and target. He plays Chicago at home this week. I think Daniel Jones gets Indianapolis at home. I think Geno gets a home game against the Jets, which is that's like a revenge game for him. You know, I think Geno's going to bounce back. You know, I really thought him against KC was that ultimate play. I think Gardner Minshew against New Orleans is a fantastic play as well. Brock Purdy against the Raiders. I mean, there's some nice matchups of some cheaper players if you need to go out there and get a guy. Yeah. And, you know, shame on me for trusting Tom Brady again this week. I struggle there. I just can't quit him. You know, like that's where I'm at. But if I had started Minshew in a couple areas over Brady, you're in the championship. I think Minshew is a guy that's going to put up 20-plus fantasy points again this week, you know. Running backs, you made up a great point about Connor. Connor gets Atlanta this week. You know, I think that is a huge play if you can go out there and get him. Aaron Jones gets Minnesota where he averages over 110 yards from scrimmage over his last 6. I think he's a nice play in there. You know, there's a lot of guys that have decent matchups. You know, David Montgomery gets a good matchup against Detroit. Akers looked great this week. If you got to make those moves, I mean, you know, I think this is a Dalvin Cook week. He always plays good against Green Bay. You know, there's so many moves to make out there at the running back position. We're not saying go all in and make some crazy moves at the running back spot, but they can obviously make or break where you're at. You know, and I think you and I both build our teams around stud running backs, and I think that's an area where it's like, you can go out there and you can definitely win yourself a championship. And there's a lot of opportunities this week to go out there and do it, you know. And I think the tricky part is there's a couple touchdown dependent guys. I mean, McKinnon, are we trusting him right now? You know, he had those 2 great weeks in the 30s. This week, you take away the touchdown, it wasn't pretty, you know. And I think he got a lot of guys to this next spot. There's some other guys out there that right now that I think are cheap. I think Zeke's going with what? Is it 8 straight games with a touchdown? He gets Tennessee on a Thursday night. I mean, that might be a Tennessee team that's ready to just, if Derrick Henry isn't starting, Zeke could eat as well, you know. So there's a lot of opportunities out there for sure. Leonard Fournette looked fantastic this past week. Yeah, there's just, the running back position is deep, and there's a lot of opportunities out there.
Yeah, I threw out some earlier. I was just kind of scanning the list. Tyler Algier looks like he's now kind of taking over the Atlanta backfield, and he's got Arizona, who it's 32nd, dead last in fantasy points allowed to running backs. That would be another cheap option. I still kind of believe in Jerick McKinnon. I think he just has the knack for hitting the big play in Andy Reid's offense. Denver is kind of tough, but I'm showing they're 26th in terms of fantasy points allowed to running back. I have him as a running back too, so I wouldn't necessarily expect running back 1 numbers. But I mean, look at what happened with Cam Akers there. I mean, play the hot hand. He still should be relatively cheap, and he's a young asset that you're picking up. Definitely shoot us DMs, right? It helps to break down your roster, your opponent, and kind of look at some of the options, what it might cost to get these guys. But definitely there's a number of good options that we threw out there for you at running back.
Now, we alluded to this earlier, but I think the wide receiver position, I mean, right now, Devontae Adams, 4 2+ touchdown games. I think this is a situation where he bounces back. And people are going to think I'm crazy, but I'm making an offer for DeAndre Hopkins because Colt McCoy is hopeful this week. If Colt McCoy plays, DeAndre Hopkins is a lock for 15 to 20 points. You know, and I think that's where we're at. And he plays Atlanta. I think there's a situation here where you can go out, and I've made this offer, and it actually got accepted in a couple leagues, where I just threw my 23-second at DeAndre Hopkins, that team that got bounced, and they accepted it. You know, like, they're just like, get him off my team. You know, and I'm like, I'll take that. Because he is going to be, at minimum, a wide receiver 2 next year. You know, he is still a wide receiver 1. And I think we have this age cliff right now, right? We have this weird dichotomy of wide receivers where everybody wants the Jeffersons, the Chases, the CeeDee Lambs and A.J. Brown. They're crazy expensive.
Yeah.
I can see a scenario next year where you can have a wide receiver core of, I mean, Keenan Allen has looked fantastic down the stretch.
Yeah.
DeAndre Hopkins is still there. I mean, you know, Adams and Kupp, I don't think they're going away. And it's like, they're starting to get discounted more and more, and they're only going to get cheaper as the offseason goes on. But I think sometimes you go and a team feels bad. I mean, I dealt Russell Wilson because I made a bad trade earlier in the season. I just didn't want him on my roster anymore. And I know that's not what we preach, but I'm like, man, I don't want to see him on there anymore. Like, he's making me angry. And I think sometimes people feel that way. They just try to make that move and go out there and make a cheap offer for DeAndre Hopkins. You'll be surprised what's going to happen.
Well, right. I mean, and that was a completely situational deal that he had to go through with Trace McSorley as the starting QB. I mean, we're down to the QB3, and he just, this guy's not anywhere near the same caliber quarterback that Nuke is going to have on a, typical weekly basis. So, yeah, I'm actually with you. I mean, if you just look at our style, like you and I, a lot of our championship rosters are full of guys like Devontae Adams, Keenan Allen, DeAndre Hopkins, and Stephon Diggs. I mean, those are probably my most owned wide receivers because, they're still able to put up major production. I'm thankful I survived Smash 1 with Devontae and Nuke on the same roster. I don't think that'll happen again, though, with Colt coming in. I think that if you just look at the consistency that Devontae has had, okay, every once in a while you're going to have an off game. They take him out of the game plan for the Raiders, and things happen. I think I still like him as wide receiver 1 this week. And I'm going to say that Nuke, too, with Colt McCoy, will get peppered again, just like we've seen with him. And he should be kind of a low-end wide receiver 1 as well this week.
Yeah. Now I'm looking at my 6 teams that are in the championship, John, and 6 out of 6 have Kelsey on them. I mean, there is a difference at that tight end position that just secures everything. And I'm looking across all the leagues, and I can only find in one of my leagues, Travis Kelce is not in the championship.
He's not on the championship.
He is that difference maker. And
MVP,
I think
maybe.
In order to, it's a tale of like me starting Knox or Everett every single game in Smash 6. I'm just sitting there. I'm like, which ones are going to be this week, guys? Right now, if you are still in the playoffs, get Kittle, get Hawkinson, or get, I think Goddard. I think all 3 of those guys are going to have absolutely. Kittle has been phenomenal with Brock Purdy, and I think you can still get him at an affordable cost. Do whatever you can to move from, because after that top 4 guys, it just dies.
Shaky.
And you're flipping coins. You're like, is it going to be an Evan Ingram week? Is it going to be a Tyler Higbee week? Is it going to be an Njoku week? If you started in Njoku this past week, you got 4 points, but if you started Higbee, you got 39, it's really just a crazy crapshoot. Get yourself in a situation where you're in that area. And I think in the offseason, that's going to be one of my points of emphasis of that tight end position, really, is just making sure we're in there and getting that. I want to talk a little bit about the flip side, John, is I lost. I lost in Smash 4. So my Smash 4 team was gorgeous. I mean, before Stafford got hurt, before Brady decided that he didn't know how to play football anymore. No, before Brady decided he wasn't going to put up fantasy numbers. I mean, like, this team looked like it was just built to destroy. Like I had at running back, it was Christian McCaffrey, Joe Mixon, Jonathan Taylor, Alvin Kamara. It's just nasty, right? Derrick Henry. So I had those 5 running backs. Keenan Allen, DeAndre Hopkins, Deebo Samuel, Cooper Kupp. I got booted from the playoffs, right? So, I mean, that is a very win-now team. But I was able to, shout out to Adam Armour. Adam Armour is in the championship in that one. And I made a deal with him. Like we were talking it over. And the first move I made was I traded Christian McCaffrey to one of the other competitors, Dan Duke DB. Another great guy in the Patreon. I gave him Christian McCaffrey. I got Trey Lance and a 24 first. So now I'm like, okay, let's start insulating this roster. Let's start retooling. Because the earlier you retool, right now, they want the guys on my team. When Christian McCaffrey, when this becomes March, is Christian McCaffrey as desirable as he is right now? Absolutely not. He is not. I then go to Adam and I'm like, hey, you want to win this thing? I got Joe Mixon. I got Derek Carr. I got Derrick Henry. So he goes, all right. Let's do the 3 of them. I was like, for Jalen Hurts. And I said, nah, I can't give you all 3 of them, man. Like, he's tugging at my heartstrings, knows I want more Jalen Hurts. I was like, man, quarterback's what put me down. All right, give me, throw in Rondale Moore and throw in a pick. We get it done.
Right.
He's happy. I'm happy. I get Jalen Hurts. he gets, I think Henry's going to just drop in value. Mixon, I did not want to move, but it was like, Derek Carr, you can have him. Just let's push this. And it's a win-win. And I think what you're really trying to do in this situation is Adam's going to remember that in another league. I'm in 3 leagues with Adam. I'm like, hey, you got that trump card a couple years down the road where you're like, I made that move with you. It was a fair deal. Come on, help me out here a little bit. And it's all about building relationships. It's about making moves. And I think the more active you are as a team that's not in the playoffs with those playoff teams, the better it's going to be down the road, because they're all like, dude, this guy didn't just pack it in. Like, this guy's still trying to make moves. He's trying to squeak out whatever value he can.
Yeah, and you can actually still be kind of this disruptive force in your league even after you got booted, and you want to be kind of putting yourself out there, right, so that the other teams still competing look at your team and you can take advantage of that. Again, you're on the other side now where you can actually, with some leverage, get some moves that'll help yourself out next year. And you got to ask yourself the question, like, the value that these specific players have right now with these guys heading into the championship may be higher than it'll ever be, right? Look, does this player still have the ability to accrue more value in the offseason or next season? Are they young enough? But for some of the guys you just rattled off, which again, in a lot of win now type rosters you're going to have, now's the perfect time to unload a couple of them and kind of retool a little bit, pick up some assets, and maybe win a couple of those deals because you have the leverage and these other guys are trying to take one down. So definitely stay active, right?
I'm thinking the McCaffrey deal, that's an insulated trade, right? So we get to a situation, I think if the offseason plays out properly, Trey Lance is going to get himself back into that second round of startups, the same area where McCaffrey is going to be. Then you got that 24 first. And a lot of people talk to me about, well, Dad, I mean, you just gave up a running back, right? Now all of a sudden you don't have a running back, you're needy there. Well, I have Trey Lance as my quarterback. I can buy a running back for a 24 first. I can buy James Conner somewhere cheap. I can buy those guys. And I'm really starting to build
Stocks.
in that way a little bit more. Exactly. I got to talk to you about one trade that I'm like, in. It doesn't have to be, like we all say, well, we got to push in, win now, or go the other way. So I made a deal, John, and I want to hear what you have to say about this. But I had the 102, right? And I got it from a guy in another trade. And I know that the guy that had the 101 really wanted Treylon Burks. So I trade Treylon Burks in the 102 for Juju in the 101. And I'm a locked-in playoff team. I'm just excited to get another Bijan share.
Heck yeah. Yeah, no, I think you win that one.
And I like Burks, but it was like, for me, I'm excited, and everybody's coming after that because they know I'm still in the playoffs. I'm not trading that particular pick, but I think you can still play around with picks. There's still guys out there that have a plethora of 23 firsts that are just playing around trying to figure things out. You can definitely make those kind of moves, but I just think, guys, the biggest thing to take away from this is if you're in it, go all in. If you got knocked out, make those moves now. Like, don't just pack it in and be like, I'm going to go check this out again after the Super Bowl. Because there are those owners, right? Those guys that just disappear. And we are trying to teach you at Smash Accept not to be that casual owner. We're not trying to be that guy in that mediocrity, treadmill. We're trying to be those teams where it's like, dude, I lost the playoffs this year, but I just made that move. And now Trey Lance is going to ball out next year. Now we're going to get that 24 first. Now we're just going to get things rolling again for 2023 because, man, we have so many exciting things at Smash Accept in 2023. Like this rookie class, every time you put a tweet out there, hundreds of people are loving it, and it's just, it's so exciting. Right now, Smash 3, I have 1 through 10. And it's just,
it's unbelievable.
Dude, it's so exciting. It's going to be a fun year, and I'm excited to share these 2023 guests that we're going to have on, to share the knowledge that we've been, really been grinding into that rookie class. And now might be the time that you can go get another one. There's one guy that offered me, he wants Kamara off my team for a 24 first. I'm like, yo, you want to win that ship? Give me the 23 first. I don't care if it's 110. I want that pick. You know what I mean? It's like, you can, now is the last time, this is the last week, John, before these things are so valuable that you can't touch them.
Yeah, definitely stay active regardless of your situation, right? And I'll actually take that message one step further. When the season ends, Dynasty is just beginning, right? championships are really won in the off season, right? You're doing your homework, you're getting on the pod, you're listening to our guests break down the rookies that are coming in. These guys are watching film, they're looking at analytics, and we bring in a mixture of these guys to help you in your upcoming rookie drafts assess these values. I mean, you mentioned one earlier, just getting that 101, getting Bijan. We know that is going to be one of the most valuable fantasy assets that we have seen in years, frankly. Right. And so there's going to be a big drop off in value, even from the 101 to the 102, I think, for this coming class, just because of the hype, the market value. This stock is just going to continue to rise. So stay active during the offseason.
Like that move I made, I don't consider that to be expensive. You know, like, but when we move to April, in end of April into May, and Bijan goes number 5 to the Eagles, or he goes top, he goes top 5 to 8. Dude, that value is going to absolutely skyrocket. And the 101 in this class is like having the 101 when you had Saquon in there. And it's like, whatever you can do to do that, it's cheaper now. So go to the guy that has the 101 and make an offer that you feel like is, I mean, I'm willing to pay the 102 and the 110. I'm bet, like 102 and maybe even 18, and that guy that might be rebuilding, he'll be like, dang, all right, I get 2 picks there. It's only moving back 1. But I think the difference when we get to May is going to be significantly more once people see how special Bijan is and how early he gets, taken in the NFL draft. And I know that's kind of, we're just
I think that's a really important lesson. It really is. I mean, one of the things that in an unpredictable type of hobby that we have here with fantasy football, one thing that is predictable is those rookie picks will continue to accrue more and more value leading up to when you are on the clock in your rookie draft. It's going to happen. It happens every single year. So if you just lost and you have a chance to pick up some rookie picks to maybe another contender that's going for it here in the last week, take advantage of that situation, but stay active with us. We're going to be going through tiers. I'm already putting my tiers out and all my rankings out. We're going to be watching more film. There's some bowl games. We got Senior Bowl coming up. We got Combine coming up. So this is where we break it down for everybody. And this is what I actually love the most about the Smash Pod. And, we bring in a lot of the other big time industry analysts to help us, right? We want to learn too. And so it's going to be a big part of the off season program. So again, stay active. That's how you win in this business here.
So super excited for this week. If you guys have questions, start, any of those kind of things for John and I, hit us up. John, my one under the radar guy for week 17, and you got to have brass balls to throw him out there. But it's Mike White, baby.
Ooh.
Yo, Mike White he's
love it.
Dude, my man went to 10 different doctors to try to get cleared to get on the football field while Zach Wilson's mom's out here attacking the fan base. You know what I mean? Mike White's out here grinding, and now he gets Seattle, which is a bottom 10 pass defense, and he gets a chance to play for a job. Like, I think Mike White
That's it. Audition.
is like, I have a situation right now. Do I start Mike White or Tom Brady? Like, you never thought you'd ask that question, right? But it's a legitimate question. In Smash, I have him in 2 of my home leagues. That's a question. And in Smash 6 or 5, that's a question, John. Is like, do you start Mike White or Tom Brady? And that just seems crazy.
Yeah, but that's what you have to do. I mean, you really kind of do want to stick with the talent, the guys that got you to the big dance, right? The dance with the one that brung you kind of mentality is what I have, but you really do need to look at these matchups, right? We have to factor that in. And so, yeah, I mean, if you look at what Tom Brady's been doing and you look at that energy and Mike White and his audition, going against Seattle, I mean, it's close, right? I mean, Mike White would be a good guy to target. Yeah. So I kind of like that one. And hit us up with all those
out there.
Decisions.
I saw 3 guys across my league, and I'm not shaming anybody that started them, but I mean, 2 leagues, a guy started Nick Foles, another one, a guy started Trace McSorley. In leagues with no trade deadline, it's like you got to kick the tires to the Gardner Minshew guy. You got to go out and make an offer to the Mike White guy. You got to go out and make an offer to the Jared Goff. You just have to. You know what I mean? Like, if you go out there and you put yourself in a situation with those kind of quarterbacks, you know what the outcome's going to be. And I think you have to go out there and you have to at least make an effort to try to do those. I mean, a guy started Laviska Shenault against me in one of the leagues this year, but he still has his 23 first. Like, dude.
Yeah, come on.
That's going to kill you. You have to know that.
Right. Yeah, you may have. I mean, there's a risk that Tua with concussion, which, by the way, explains his second half.
Yeah.
I did lose. I lost one semifinal in my home league, which you never want to lose in your home league.
No.
And Tua was a big reason for that. Yeah, I know, right? But yeah, you got to stay active. Don't just give up because you lost your QB1 or your QB2. Shoot some people some offers. Be active and see if you can't get somebody that you could plug in there. That will likely be the difference. You don't want to limp in with, somebody like Tyler Huntley or Colt McCoy if you can avoid it, right?
To talk about home leagues, I mean, that league where I'm talking about, I'm trying to four-peat, right? And I've been in the ship 7 straight years. They're celebrating in there. They're like, yo, Dad didn't even make the championship. I'm like, I was the number 1 seed. I was like outscored my opponents by 300, and I lost in a fluke game, and it can happen. And I was beating myself up about that one the whole time because I was like, I wanted to four-peat, right? Like I wanted it bad.
I hear you.
My other home leagues where I've struck out every single year. I'm in the championship in all of them, and I'm excited about that. I'm at Dynasty Kings. Shout out to Andrew Gravis. He's a great commissioner. I'm in that one. That's a year in and year out one. Like I'm just excited for this weekend because there's so much riding on it. And again, like you and I talk about, guys, enjoy it. Like make those trades. Make those roster moves, set those lineups, ask us about it, and enjoy it on the weekend. Like, just soak it in, try to enjoy it, and that's the biggest thing at Smash Accept is like we've prepared you to get into the playoffs. We've told you who to buy, when to buy them, how to buy them, and what rookie picks to get. And I mean, like the hit rates have been phenomenal this year. We're going to continue to do that. You're in position now. Sit back, relax, and take in that fantasy gold.
Yeah, and I definitely want to give a quick shout out here to @Dreggers going up against him in the Smash 1 final. This one is, the two juggernauts, number 1 seed for me, number 2 seed for him. He's built a roster. He stayed very active, made some really, really good trades, a couple that I really wish I wouldn't have seen, but I got to hand it to him. He's gotten it done. And it's going to be a fun one going down. So can't wait to see that one go down. And, it's at a point where I've done everything I can. I might make maybe one more move. We'll see. But I want to wish him the best. And you just kind of have fun. And if you can't seem to quite take it down, be happy for your opponent. Because, again, a lot of this really is, especially in the Smash Leagues, it is about the community. It's about all these guys coming together, having fun. It's a hobby, right? And, to me, that's really the most important thing. So you don't want to miss that.
Well, and a lot of you guys are asking, how do I get into a Smash League? And, I got to be honest, in across the 7 leagues, whoever lost in the playoffs, congratulate the other person. I thought that was really cool.
That's great.
Almost the whole way across the board. There's been a lot of positive talk in there. There are a few orphans, so we're going to post probably mid-January just a list of orphans. If you guys want to get in there, if you want to take some risks and do it that way. Smash 8 will probably start, probably in February because we're degenerates. Right after the Super Bowl, we'll probably throw that out there, you know what I mean? But just be active. We'll be posting those things so you guys can get in there, a chance to play with myself, John, Mung, Adam, the whole gang, Nerd Boy. They're like sprinkled across all of them. And guys, I mean, it's just been a blast. Appreciate those guys on the Patreon. Love you guys, the listeners. We're so excited. We wish you the best of luck this week. So thanks again for tuning in and enjoy the process. That was like